So when I was younger, there was a time I spent serving as a member of a new Mennonite church. Hard to believe now, but back then I very much wanted to become a youth minister and empower children. And for a time it worked. I did believe in it. Truly, I reflected a lot on Jesus' teachings about loving and how that was our job, to love and to never harm and hurt, and that through the power of our Lord, all monsters would bow to his holy light. Monsters. When you think of monsters, what do you see? Teeth like a knife rack? Eyes the color of amber? Perhaps it's a translucent specter or a cosmic horror, or any number of ghastly ghoulies you picture when you browse the media of pulp horror. When I think of monsters, I think about khaki pants and Bibles. Anyways, this story all started with a rumor about a basement in a church. Growing up in the early 2000s, I attended a church called Christian, and rumor had it the youth group was doing weird shit in the basement. Now, at the time, I was super closeted because, well, I'm sure you can guess why. But still, I was seeing a guy named John who gave me all the details. Apparently, one of John's close friends cut off all communications with him, and John wanted to know why. After some investigation, turns out the kid didn't want to associate with sinners. Let's just be blunt, he meant us f***ing queers. And John said this wasn't like him at all. Some time passed and I didn't think much of it until John showed up at the coffee shop a few of us hung out at. He told us what I've told you, that the youth group was doing weird shit in the basement, but to queer kids exclusively. John, being John, wanted to find out more. Now, most of us, yours truly as well, didn't really believe the rumor. But being young, dumb, and full of terrible ideas anyways, we decided to see what was up. I don't care how old you are, by the way. Sneaking into a church at any point in time sounds fun as fuck. So, fast forward to the night that shit got weird. Held youth meetups on Friday night. This was mostly a standard gospel get-together, but with some games and shit. I, a youth minister in training at a different church, had gone before, so I kinda knew around the building a bit. Me, John, and 3 other friends first met outside. During the part of the night where everyone was in the chapel singing hymns, we snuck out to try and find our way to the basement. But once inside, we quickly realized it was a f***ing labyrinth down there. So we looked around, we saw what we could see, and turns out nothing. We came up bupkis. We looked everywhere, and it turns out that the rumors were just f***ing rumors. That relief lasted for about 5 seconds until we heard voices coming from down the hallway with no lights. Save for one creepy-ass exit sign at the very end. Creeping down the hall to a door that was open just a crack, we looked inside. The room was lit only by what I can describe as one of those tube fluorescent ceiling fixture thingies, you know, but attached to like a rolling metal frame. We can make out about a half a dozen kids, all high school age, standing in a circle with hands clasped. Boy, girl, with one of those youth pastors of this church. All the girls were wearing those ankle-length denim skirts like the Duggar kids wear, and guys were wearing khakis and white button-down shirts. They were swaying from side to side like zombies. And there, with one light source fixed on him, was some kid strapped to a chair. The youth leader was reading from the Bible, and would occasionally say something in what I assume was Latin. And then the other kids would respond and chant. The kid strapped to the chair looked like hell, no pun intended, honestly. Not like bloody and beaten, mind you, like some cheesy cop movie, more just like worn down and tired, like a character in a Junji Ito drawing. Later on, we'd find some bruises and scratches on the kid. Originally, we hadn't planned on doing anything if we'd actually found something, but that changed in an instant when the youth leader yelled, "Do you repent homosexuality and all its temptations presented by Satan?" Something like that. I don't know. It was almost like 20 years ago. The poor kid, not able to open his eyes much because of the light, pitifully muttered, please, we were just holding each other. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the leader threw what looked like water, assuming holy water, in the kid's face and started the process again. And it wasn't like a little sprinkle of water either, like in The Exorcist. No, it was more like a bucket of ice water. John quietly gestured for us to retreat down the hallway. I still remember hearing muffled cries as we walked back. And then came time for us to face the moral reality of what was going on. I asked, guys, what are we gonna do? Should we call the cops? John and the other three really didn't trust cops. And to be fair, I knew at least a few of the officers who attended the church, and just, yeah, complications. Churches already have a creepy cult vibe by themselves, but this place was extra. Someone suggested walking in and just seeing what happened, but that was quickly vetoed. I looked over at John, who, with the exception of the dismissing the cops, had been relatively quiet. What we hadn't noticed was that he had been rummaging through his backpack the rest of the time. He took out a cylinder, and he told us to listen. See, Jay didn't think the rumor was a small-town legend. He thought it was real. And so that beautiful bastard came up with a half-cocked plan ahead of time. I say half-cocked because there's no way any of us thought this through, and his preparations came straight from the Anarchist Cookbook. Jay had made a fucking smoke bomb, and a mental note of where the fire alarm was. This whole next bit, by the way, is pretty chaotic. I'll try to retell it the way it happened, but, like, it gets a little messy after this point. John reached into his bag and gave us face coverings. I remember that he put on one of those bandanas that had the teeth and the jaws of a skeleton painted on it, you know the ones. Then we ducked down and went back to the room all stealthy-like. I swear it felt like it was playing a real-life version of Metal Gear, or something equivalently ridiculous to bring up as a comparison. The ritual torture of this kid was still going on. I couldn't see it from where I was crouching, but I could still hear the youth group chanting in Latin. John was in front. I was crouched behind him with another one of our friends. The others were staked out around the corner under the fire alarm. John kind of windmilled his arm and tossed the smoke bomb into the youth group meeting room. It was the kind that's made from a ping pong ball filled with chemicals and wrapped in tinfoil that made a kind of tail. And then before anyone in the room could react, Jay slammed the door shut and held it while the room filled up with smoke. Eventually, he let go of the door and everyone came pouring out. With everyone coughing on the ground, me and one of the other guys picked up the possessed kid and started running down the hallway. And then we all booked it up the stairs, taking off our face coverings, and we ran out the fire exit. There was a youth group member chasing us. I laugh at the thought of a girl chasing someone down in one of those long denim skirts. No judgment on the skirts part, just the, chasing us part. I mean, I heard their feet pounding on the linoleum behind us, but I don't think they ever got close to catching us. Too much smoke and chaos. Too many long skirts. The church was close to a school, and that school had a little forest in the back, and since it was convenient for us to hide, we all booked it back there. I, being the good little idiot I was back then, was panicking about what had just happened. More about me and my paranoia a bit later. The others were attending to the kid that we just rescued. When we were sure we got away and could speak freely, we got more details from the kid. The stories were true, by the way. The youth group was conducting a DIY gay conversion exorcism. Poor dude mentioned that his dad caught him making out with his boyfriend, who was not a member of the church, FYI. His father told the youth pastor, and the youth pastor convinced the kid's family that he was possessed by a demon. A gay demon, presumably. Actually, it was a specific demon, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I still remember. He described it as Morax, the great Earl and Lord President of Hell, commander of 32 demonic legions. I wonder how many times he had those exact words beaten into his memory. And the worst part of all of this is that this was done with the kid's parents' blessing. To this day, I maintain the smartest man I ever met was John, my ex. By the way, it's a long story, but it is a funny one. John pretended to be this kid's boyfriend and staged a breakup in front of the parents. And so the kid himself ended up pretending to date one of John's friends, who herself was a lesbian, who was using John's friend as cover to date somebody else. It was really, I think you get the general idea, but it was pretty fucking awesome. And what of the church? Well, I'm sure as hell I wasn't going to go back, but I had friends who attended regularly. Well, they were more like acquaintances. I keep my private life private because, you know, gay. Anyways, they told me that the youth leader in question was no longer a member of the church after an incident in the basement. And so naturally, since we still didn't hear any more stories, we assumed the issue was resolved. We hoped. I still hope, to be honest. Oh, I almost forgot. There's a PS on this story. Remember how I said earlier that I was all paranoid about what had happened? I think I had pretty good reason. For about 3 months after that night, I felt myself being watched. There were times that I'd be crossing the street or looking out my bedroom window, and I'd see a girl wearing a heavy ankle-length denim skirt standing on the sidewalk looking, not paying attention to any of the people or the cars around her, just looking at me. Another time I saw a kid I didn't know, like he went to a different high school, dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt, walking a few paces behind me in the mall. Whenever I'd stop, he'd freeze in his tracks and pretend to look at something nearby. I met a friend for ice cream and saw that same kid standing outside in the doorway of the ice cream parlor, staring at me. And he was swaying, ever so slightly, from side to side like a zombie. On my way home from school one day, I noticed some graffiti on the back wall of a Tim Hortons. It said, "Morax lives." There was a number underneath that looked like the chapter and verse of numbers of a Bible quote. But I never looked it up, and I don't recall what it was now. Also, at that Tim Hortons, I noticed that there was a church van at all hours of the night. It was never parked in the same space, but it was always parked so that there was a direct line of sight to my house, or to, worse, my bedroom window. Like I said, this went on for several months and nothing really came of it, but if the intention was to make me frightened and paranoid, well, mission accomplished. Anyways, that's the quick and dirty on that. Join me next week as I explain another shit aspect of my life. Thanks for joining, folks.
Of your emergency.
Your world can change in the blink of an eye.
He walked into the bedroom and you know that she had been murdered.
So he's running up and down, screaming, "Oh my God, someone call 911. There are 2 men killing a girl."
I know my son, and he would not go that long without saying anything to anyone.
Safety can be an illusion and reality a nightmare.
So how do you steal a person, a grown person?
Unspeakable crimes can penetrate any small town, big family, pretty face, or innocent child. And in the wake of a loved one's murder or disappearance, there is nothing more cruel or desperate as silence.
Why won't people talk about it? That's another thing. People don't want to talk about it around here.
For the families of the missing and murdered, they gambled with their sanity as they lose hope in closure and settle for justice. That's where the cold case playing cards come in. In each episode of the Dealing Justice podcast, your hosts Jennifer Dubisak and Lori Jennings will spotlight one card from the cold case playing card deck. Hear the victim's story from the friends and family who knew them best.
Her mom will never stop fighting until she finds out what happens to her daughter.
learn about the crime, and help close the case. Welcome to Season 2. We're not just playing cards, we're dealing justice.
Hey, I'm Karen.
And I'm Aubrey.
And this is Chicklit, a literature comedy podcast where we enjoy getting lit and talking about books that spoke to us as young adults.
Yeah, Book It was dope as fuck.
Yeah, I did
used to get the little personal pan pizza.
Yes!
Oh my god. Just for you. Yeah, nobody can take that shit, dog.
But we also cover movies with special guests, and it can get pretty crazy.
I'll make a controversial statement. I will take this over Space Jam.
Is that controversial?
People love Space Jam.
We might have to stage a fight.
So if you enjoy YA fiction, that fool of a fairy, Lucinda, did not intend to lay a curse on me. She meant to bestow a gift.
Boozy beverages.
Little shot of Bailey's in your coffee. Coffee, pizza, and Bailey's goes together like...
Doesn't go together. Like
it doesn't go together at all. And the power of friendship. I'll be like, I bought your Christmas present. And she'll be like, what'd you get me? I have to know.
Tell me right now.
And I'm like,
Henry
no.
gets so irritated because I'm like, do you want your present now? And he's like, it's like October. No, I don't.
Then we're the podcast for you.
We've been best friends for over a decade, so join in on the fun and grab a drink, y'all. January 6th at 1:15 p.m., the day that Dry January died.
Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. I'm CJ, host of Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. My episodes focus on crimes committed by and against the LGBTQ community. I've covered cases you probably have heard of, such as Matthew Shepard, Brandon Tina, and the Orlando Pulse nightclub massacre, as well as some lesser-known cases like the murder of Ray Hainish, the Australian gay beat murders, and the suspicious disappearance of Lisa Lynn Stone. I cover cases brought to me by listeners like Penny Brummer, who I believe was wrongfully convicted, taboo cases such as lesbian corrective rape and murder in South Africa, and Pray the Gay Away camps. I discuss gay serial killers, women who pretend to be men to hook up with other women, and trans murders. I'm opinionated and uncensored. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but surely I'm someone's shot at tequila. No matter what your gender or orientation in life might be, please join me as I tackle rainbow crimes in search of unicorn justice. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.
I'm Edward October. For more true-ish, and classic tales of horror and the paranormal, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to ring the bell so you don't miss anything. Or find all of our links at octoberpodvhs.com. Octoberpod, retro horror for bold individualists.